For 6 months, I did work for somebody else, and it was probably the worst 6 months of my life. Making money in a fun state is the easiest way to amplify your wealth. What you celebrate gets replicated. So you gotta make a really conscious choice about what you're focusing on. How do you explain how billionaires make money? They have a vision. I had to let go of everything but my kids and my house to follow a new dream. Ever since I was little, I was having little garage sales selling stuff. So I think some people are just born that way, where they see opportunity and they're going to either make something with it or they're not. I think the difference between a true entrepreneur and somebody who is a 9 to 5er is leadership. And I feel like when you are a young child and you are very convicted in the things that you see and want in life and you're able to express them, your leadership skills go up and your confidence in yourself and what you can create in this world goes up. So a 9 to 5er is looking for someone else who's taking leadership, where entrepreneurs are like, I'm going to take the reign. And this is what I've been doing from as far as back as I can remember.
Yeah. So it's imprinted there. There was really no other path. Did you ever even try the 9 to 5 corporate route, or it was always this or nothing?
For 6 months out of being a lawyer, I did work for somebody else, and it was probably the worst 6 months of my life. I realized how chained I was. I went to something that was more money, and it was a glamorous job on the 75th floor, and little did I find out that amount of money that I was making, I was actually a prisoner in that position. So for me, it was like, okay, this is not how I want to live. I want freedom, and I want to be able to make more money than just what was offered to me. I also want to make my own decisions, but it's scary because there's no safety net. There's no for sure money coming in. You have to basically rely on yourself. But I had the skill sets, and anybody who's listening, if you've always felt like you were meant for more, and instead of being trapped in a 9 to 5, and I'm not saying it's trapped, because for some people, I should reframe that. For some people, that is their route and that's where they want to go. But for those who want to be a part of the 1%, you got to feed that fire so that you can see what you can do.
So obviously, we see a little bit of that story for you. You were a lawyer, you're working for someone else. When you made that shift and you said, okay, no, there's capacity limits here. I want to do more. I want to create more. I want to make more money. What did that shift look like in your personal story?
I had a moment. It was about 13 years ago. I had my own firm. So it was only 6 months. I practiced law for 20 years, and the majority of it, I had my own firm. And however, there was a moment, and maybe some of the people that are listening, depending on where they are on their journey, you have a before and after, something pivotal that's happened to you in your life. And you're like, I can't unsee this. And for me, it happened on a yoga mat. It was January 2013. And on this yoga mat, I had a moment where I was facing really, what did my life mean? It was only 15 minutes into this pose. And my girlfriend actually was running the class. She was saying, like, are you happy? I had achieved all the things that they told you were supposed to achieve: the husband, the kids, going to Europe in the summertime, going to the Caribbean in the winter, the material things, the $1 million house, the businesses, whatever it was, perfect body. I checked all of the boxes. Yet in that moment, I realized that all of those things did not fulfill me. And they actually left me feeling quite unfulfilled with my life. And I had to do an assessment of where I was. And that moment, I cried there for the next 45 minutes, had the ugliest cry of my life. I had no idea I had trauma. I had a bunch of stuff coming up from the past, which if you don't fix that stuff, it's going to really, it comes up in your everyday life. Cause I always say you're the blueprint for your life and business. And it was very telling of where I was in that life. And so after that, I went on a journey, and I had to figure out, why did I get to that point in my life? I wanted to find out who was Shamina, because I had no idea who she was anymore. And it was a really big thing because I had to lean on faith now and follow these signs that were telling me I was here for something more. And that's the hardest thing to do when you're a cognitive person and everything in your mind is all laid out. You're a planner, you're an overthinker. Well, I'm a reformed, all of those things. But when you were in that place where you want to know, should I do it? And you're playing it safe, I had to let go of everything but my kids and my house to follow a new dream. And when I did, it brought in the most miraculous life that I possibly could have. I could have even imagined how big this could have been. But I let go of something that wasn't serving me to receive and have something bigger come into my life. And when you're in this industry, being a lawyer, doctor, whatever it is that you're doing, and you have a profession, it's really hard to pivot because my whole identity was surrounding being an attorney. And that's what I went to school for. That's what I spent, almost $300,000 on education for. And I don't regret it for 1 minute. And I'll always be an attorney. However, there was something else in my life. And I think that people don't realize that your life of school, things that can happen for you, you can pivot, and there's still more that you can do in this lifetime if something's calling to your heart.
Yeah. I love your story. It resonates with me a ton. I think I told you before we started recording, like, we have some overlap in the things that we do. And I think even just hearing the story, I still remember where I was standing. You were on a yoga mat. I remember I was standing in my house just being like, what? I have all the things that were on the vision board, right? I had achieved all of the things. And it was almost like at the end of the list, and I was still feeling really, really hollow. And I had faith, I had God, and it wasn't necessarily that lack of rootedness in the spirituality, even. It was just the things that I had aspired for they were not it, you know? And it was really, really hard and soul crushing to be like, okay, so now what? If it's not this and it's not these outward achievements, then how am I ever going to actually feel completely filled up? So that was a total, and then everything started to crumble from there, right? Once you feel that lack of fulfillment internally, it didn't take long for the external world to start to match how I was feeling. And like you, I recognized I did a lot to change to bring in and create success, but internally there was still a piece of me that was rejecting it, that couldn't receive it. So some slight variation in maybe the breaking down that we both had, but I
I have
totally get it.
I have a theory about how this works because I've after mentoring thousands of women, and I read patterns. So a lot of the times that we are seeking that success, it's from a need for validation. And
Mhm.
usually it comes from not having it as a young child. And not to get all into, the emotional intelligence of things, but I see how I've raised my children and how I've broken generational trauma and I've created generational wealth with them. One of the things that I realize is when people are well loved, they do amazing things in the world. However, I'm not blaming our parents because it's not what we came here to do because we're all grown-ups. But many of them didn't have the capacity to raise us to the emotional intelligence that we actually require to have major success in our lives or to leave the past behind and not have self-loving beliefs on a daily basis, imposter syndrome or self-sabotage or all the things that people like struggle with on a daily basis when they're trying to achieve that next level of success. And for me, I just push through it because that's what a woman does when she's working really, really hard. It's about survival. And so
Mm,
because I had unresolved trauma, I went into a survival state unbeknownst to me. It was very subconscious in how I did it. And that's what most women do. It's proving, showing the world, look what I can do. However, the reason why it does not satiate us is because it does not fulfill the main thing that's missing, which is, feeling worthiness. And unworthiness
mm,
can be the most beautiful thing for success. But at the same time, once you get it, it's like, well, wow, I wish it's supposed to feel different because that's an internal thing. And until you do that deeper inner work that, to really get yourself to a place of really loving who you are and plugging that unworthiness wound. I would believe we have three of core wounds. It's unworthiness, betrayal, and abandonment. And I can look at someone's income and their business and I can see which one of those things are prevalent. It's such a crazy thing to see. And it's not to be heavy because these are easy fixes. However, when you see these things, you're like, wow, someone's just living a pattern and they don't even realize it because it's just a
mm,
survival state. And abundance can't be brought from survival. I've helped 51 women become millionaires, multimillionaires, and 346 women hit their highest cash months. And once we show them where that block is, it's like a lid gets lifted. And they're like, gosh, I didn't even know I was living in this survival state. Because you can make money in survival state. I mean, you can make tons of money in survival state. However,
yeah.
fulfillment piece and being really feeling like you can compound it, grow it, and feel safe with money and be able to invest money, use money, and have financial literacy that we is required of us to really reach that next level of wealth. That comes from this work that I teach about wealth
Mm,
consciousness and your money mindset.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to break this down because you had your moment. You're on the yoga mat. You're recognizing this. You step away from the safe, the known. You're now in a position where you're helping so many women to achieve that, I guess, that groundedness and that inner fulfillment. And I agree with you. It is a validation issue. It's like at this moment of, oh my gosh, I can see my childhood through a different lens now. It's great awareness, not the blame game, right? But I see that too. And I fully agree with that. So for you, what did the journey look like? And I imagine it's very much the same process you take your coaching clients through and the women that you've mentored. What is the first step from that? And I mean, I have another follow-up question to that too. How do we help women before they even get to the point where they recognize I'm living from survival to start making that shift?
Here's the thing, like, I don't think a lot of women even recognize they're in survival state. And
Mhm.
some of the signs look like this. It's like she doesn't have a support team in her life or in her business. Or she's like feels like her time is tapped out, but really it's a capacity issue because she doesn't have the capacity to hold more. She's waking up at 5 a.m. thinking that's the solution because if I wake up at 5 a.m., I can get everything done. So she loads up her list of things to do for the day and feeling like I've got to get all of these things done because she's in her do energy, which is a trauma response. It's that busy energy, having
Mhm.
a packed schedule. However, I've learned to make millions and I wake up when I'm done sleeping because I feel like that's the way my nervous system gets regulated. For a lot of women, though, they don't have the capacity to feel into the bigness of money because their nervous system isn't regulated for that. That steps
Mhm.
backwards again of looking at like what made you feel unsafe. The unsafety that they feel, the unsafe feeling is why they work so hard because they're trying to make themselves feel safe with money and success. However, if we need money to feel safe and successful, that means we don't have it within ourselves. And that is a sign of a survival state and being in the up and down and leading to burnout or whatever else comes next. Right. And money income leaks. Like I'll see it all the time. Women will make money. They'll work really hard. They'll hustle really hard. And then all of a sudden, like, she may not know where the money went. I can't tell you how many clients came to me, like they're making, up to $100,000 a month. And they're like, I don't know where this money's going. I have no idea where the money's going. But it's
Mm.
like a automatic response system for your nervous system to, okay, I can't hold this money. Let's create a space for it to fly right back out again, like a lawsuit, unexpected expenses, things come up where you're like, I can't explain why the money's coming in and going out. Now, how you start recognizing this is just seeing like, are you happy with the way you're making the money? Like, I know it sounds like a very simple question, but a lot of the times people just do it because it's what they know and because they have to. And it's
Mm.
not from a place of pleasure or joy to say, like, I really love money. Making money in a fun state is the easiest way to amplify your wealth. But when it's like comes from like, oh my gosh, I do this, it's a lot of work, right? And that's not the highest level of frequency you can be when it comes to receiving money. Now, I think for many women is they feel like they're responsible for their caretaking. They're control freaks because they need that level of control. I used to be this. That's why I say this with love, but that actually it impinges upon how much they can receive because they're not actually in that state to receive money. I know this sounds like a bit woo woo, but it's not really because men who are making a lot of money, they already know that I do the thing, I do the work, and then I can sit back and trust that it worked, not to hover over it, micromanage, ask people like, what's going on? Did I do everything right? Triple check, because that's not where the overflow of the extra money comes in, right? It's more in the magic of like, and I
Mm.
say magic in a loose way, but it's like, how do you explain how billionaires make money? They trust, they have a vision. And that's not something that a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah. They get very caught up in that survival mentality, like you said. And I've seen that in myself. I see that in the people that I work with and that I have also mentored is you really don't see it when you're in it, but you'll know it definitely when you are suffering from the result of it. Like you said, the money is flying out. I'm not really able to hold it, receive it. Why do I still feel that lack of fulfillment? And so for you, as you started to make that shift, which kind of brings me back to my original question before I sidetracked myself, when you started on your journey, what did that look like to reclaim that safety and to
Oh
step
yeah,
into that place?
for me, when I started in the online space, I was leaving law. And it was actually January of 2020, which was the timing is just
Mm.
crazy. When I say trust the process, I mean, exercise that faith muscle. And I'm not talking about a religious place. I'm talking about really listening to what's coming out there for you, like the guidance of like what's next, because something higher than you is always speaking to you of what's next. So I really learned to exercise that muscle to trust it. But when I came into this space, I realized that I had a lack mindset still, like around certain things. And that comes scarcity and lack comes from a place of unresolved belief systems around your victimness, the story that you had to tell. And I'm not going to get into the whole story right now, but I had quite a bit of physical trauma when I was younger with my father. And it did, in a subconscious way, had me go into like, you don't know what happened to me. You don't know what I experienced in my life, that kind of mentality. And I
Mm.
wasn't a woman of abundance. So I really had to work years prior, though, as well, work on eliminating any type of language that was not serving me, like, where I would be like, "They did that to me," or blame, or no self-accountability. When someone doesn't have self-accountability, like, where they're responsible, where I always say Taylor Swift says, "I am the problem." When people don't realize that they can be the one that has the power within themselves, if they can eliminate all of the other stories that they're telling themselves, that's like the first order of business when it comes to really getting yourself out of this survival state and out of the scarcity, because when you're in abundance, you're not going to be in lack. But the only way you can truly get into abundance is non-competitiveness, collaboration, working together, seeing things from a positive state as opposed to the glass overflowing as opposed to the glass half empty, looking at opportunities and places, like really having a strong gratitude practice. But also how I created my offers and how I structured my business, it helped me see that if I could be a woman who believed that there was enough to go around for everybody, I could show other women what potentially was available for them too. I have a saying in my business, if she can, I can. Because
Mm.
if we believe that there's other people that are showing us evidence of success and we use it as a springboard for us to basically mentally or whatever get behind, then we'll be like, okay, that person has that success. But where a limited money mindset would come in is be like, how dare they spend their money like that? Like, who are they? Like, if you have judgment around how anybody spends their money, how they talk, how they do anything, judgment is an indicator of a money leak. Like,
Mm,
resentment is an indicator of money. Like, when a woman's doing everything for everybody, she creates a resentment. Like, where's my support? Where's my help? Why didn't someone just magically think about me? Well, that all automatically becomes money leak because it's resentment. It's learning how to really get yourself into a state. Like I said before, you are the blueprint for your life and business. So I had to really work on eliminating anything that would create a limit, that would let me believe that there was less than and not enough to go around, and also stop me from really allowing myself to see what was possible. So I had to expand into, is there enough for everybody? And that has been something that's been driving me for forever. Now, when a woman comes to work with me, I really try to find out, what's the story you're telling yourself? And then, how is this showing up in your business? I had a client once and she's like, July is our biggest month always ever for 3 years. And I'm like, why are you limiting yourself that July being your biggest month? Well, that's what the history says. I said, but could it change tomorrow? Well, maybe. Well, why are you limiting yourself with that story? Do you see what I mean? Because
mm,
that's how she was
mhm.
operating. Well, sure enough, August, September, she made two or $300,000. 200, it was 220,000. It was 185,000 she added to her current income. And then the other month it was like 300 and something. And I said, see, you put a limit on yourself with your old belief systems. And now look at where you are. Right. So it's,
Mm,
and people who are like, I don't want to do this offer anymore. Okay, well, why? Let's get a team member to run it. And then you can still run this offer and do something else. I think that people just believe what they want to tell themselves. And whatever you assign meaning to, if you think rich people are bad, you are right. I will never try
mm,
to convince somebody of anything else. If you think that money is only meant to do this, you're only supposed to make it to give it away, then you're right. I don't believe that. I believe you get to be
yeah.
unapologetic with your wealth. You don't have
Mm.
to justify why you want the money.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. And I think it's kind of that shift too out of the validation, right? At first, when you are motivated by that and you want to prove something to people, there's also something you want to prove to yourself. And you feel like you have to over explain, well, I want to become a millionaire. I want to have millions of dollars because of this. And when you shift out of that need to prove anything and validate it by everybody else's opinions and stories, that's like true freedom unlock because now you're creating, because it's just what you want and you don't owe anybody any explanation. You have your own vision. It's actually nobody's business unless you choose to bring them into it and, create a movement with that. So that's beautiful. I love that.
I made a video June 2020. It's on my Instagram. My team actually uploaded it yesterday. And it said, this time next year, I'm going to be a millionaire. And sure enough, $1 million crossed my Stripe account in June of 2021. And I've made millions since, a lot faster and easier. I feel like you need to like feed the vision that you have, because without it, you're just going to make money, and money needs a
Mhm.
place to go. So you can't just want to make money. You have to have an idea of where that money can go for your life. It doesn't have to be to give to the needy. That's great if you wanna do that, but it has to, how is it gonna amplify your life?
So, with the people that you work with, even specifically, because I just had this thought as you were sharing, I love this because it's a universal concept and it doesn't matter what type of business people are running. So, the clients you're working with, are they coming from a total variety of business models, founders, different things that they're doing? And so, this is just universally true. You're kind of going through that process of really just unlocking the inside stuff so that the outside stuff can work out better.
Absolutely. I have anywhere, people from ballet dancers to salespeople, like sales companies, to doctors, to lawyers, to accountants, to engineers, to CFOs. I have a few coaches. We don't have a lot of them. I have a lot of naturopaths. It's like, it's if you, because here's the thing, you have a genius that makes you amazing, whatever your skill set is. But you actually weren't taught how to run a business inside this
Hmm.
in school. Like in law school, they didn't teach me how to run a business. For many people, doctors, they are not taught how to run their business. And at the same time, they're not taught how to have the frameworks to have them see how running a business online or their brick and mortar, or having the business mindset, but not just the business acumen, but also the money mindset, the expansion of what they want to create with their lives. It's like, we're not taught that. That's not something that
Mm,
anybody teaches, that, or emotional intelligence. And all of those things are overlooked because people concentrate more on strategy. But I could have Sarah and Susie running the same strategy. But if Sarah has money mindset, wealth consciousness, and emotional intelligence, she is going to outperform Susie any given day because she has the skill sets. She knows how to run her business because she knows she's a blueprint for her life and business. And
mm,
this is where a lot of people butt their heads up. They're like, why am I not making more money? Why am I the same thing over and over again? What's the problem? We're the problem. It's us.
I love the homage to Taylor Swift too. Like that
Yeah.
song has so much more meaning than anybody can really understand, you know? It's there's so much power in self-acceptance and seeing. And that's the only thing you can really control. That's the thing I love to help people make that paradigm shift is we're focusing so much on trying to control everyone else, and that might be in not wanting to outsource, not wanting people to do things because we don't trust them to do it as well. It presents itself in so many ways. And at the end of the day, there's so much power that actually comes in when you acknowledge I'm the only one that I can actually control and that I can actually shift and change. And thankfully, that makes all the difference because it's all I really need to worry about.
Absolutely. This is where I teach emotional intelligence. It's not only does it regulate your nervous system, but you become responsive as opposed to reactory. And when you
Hmm.
learn that, like you touched on about it a couple of times, that is the highest level of empowerment you can have is when you're listening to the inner guidance, like whatever's coming through for you, you're not pulling other people of what you should do. You're also trusting, what your next move is internally, but you're also allowing yourself to respond to situations how you want to and not just let your unresolved emotions take over, and then you're creating more issues for your life in how you're running your business and whatever you're doing. Because when people learn that emotional intelligence, they don't have a dysregulated nervous systems going, and like, let's get upset about this. It's not a big deal. We'll figure this out and we'll move on to the next
Hmm.
thing. And having that nonchalant or less worry of like, what can I control? That helps you make more money because you're not spending time on things that are not money making moves in your business. They're not things that are
Hmm.
going to propel you to that next level of wealth and success that you want because you're still working with the resistance. Does that make sense? In the survival
Hmm.
state.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yep. I totally understand. Oh my gosh, this is such good stuff. I wanted to go back to, as you were explaining to, as you made this transition for yourself and you stepped into this space of really creating more intentionally and living less, in the trauma responses and things like that. And you said something about how you had to become super, super aware of any negative thought patterns and just looking at people and being jealous or having those limiting thoughts. So, in practice, do you have any like really good exercises or things people can do to just bring awareness to how much of those leaks are happening in their day-to-day life that might not even be specifically about money, but they cause more money leaks?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is actually something that really helps carrying a journal around and marking your triggers for, I say 7 days, but you can do it for at least 7 days or maybe even a month. And what I want you to do is recognize when somebody has upset you and how you're feeling, like your response to it. We don't want to text them, we don't want to message them. This is going to give you such good intel and data about your response or what still might be creating resistance or what story you might be telling yourself or what lens, like you talked about earlier, that we're seeing the world. Because I agree, we get up every day and we wear all these lens and different belief systems, patterns, and, you know, our old experiences that affect our vision of what we want to create in the world. So when you carry, I call it a trigger journal, carry a trigger journal, you're going to start seeing, wow, that upset me, that upset me, and that upset me. Huh, is this rooted in a betrayal wound or is it abandonment or is this unworthiness? And how can I go reframe this? So I have a journaling. I feel like I am the queen when it comes to journaling because I was the most stubborn person out there. I tried all the healing modalities, did a lot of things, they all helped, but I kept thinking to myself, why do I still have this belief? How do I get rid of it? So this is what I started doing. First, you want to start your day with gratitude. The next thing you like write down maybe a list of 10 things you're grateful for. Then next I want you to go into what beliefs that are coming up that you saw in that patterning or just today that you feel like this is not serving me. This is such a old belief or this is not an expansive belief. And I want you to take a moment and write all the things down that just be truthful. Don't even like judge yourself when it comes to this because you're like, gosh, why am I thinking this? Or I can't believe I'm saying this. This is part of the morning practice, but you put everything down. And then I want you to take one that you feel like, yeah, this one keeps coming up and over again. You don't want to handle everything in a day, right? You want to handle one at a time. And then I want you to really go and check in with yourself. Is this a true statement? Is this something that the most powerful version of myself today, the woman or man that you are today, are they really believing what this belief is? Or is it a past version of me that is? Dig into it. And then I want you to sit and be a lawyer. And I want you to sit there and I want to challenge those beliefs. And I want you to create as much evidence that supports it, but as much evidence that doesn't. And then when you can cognitively see a thought that keeps repeating over and over again, and you might not even known you were doing it subconsciously, you'll start seeing like, hey, this is not really anything I wanna feel anymore, and it could be gone like this, where you're no
Mm,
longer attached to it. Because once you have awareness, which I think is the first step in dissolving anything, once you have awareness about something, you're like, "Gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that." Then you have evidence to go do something with it. Then you're like, "Actually, I don't wanna actually believe that anymore. I'm gonna believe this." And then you can root in a new belief, and if you can't fully get 100% behind it, that's when I go, "If she can, I can." Look at someone else who's gone through it and be like, "Well, she can get over that, then I can too." I dig and I look. If I want something in my life, whatever it's my personal relationships or my business, if I don't have it, I'm like, "Okay, it's me. Let me figure out how I
mhm,
can open up for myself to receive it. Is there something that could be an impediment for me having it or a belief that I'm protecting myself?" Because the subconscious is run on your emotions, which is why I teach emotional intelligence and emotional mastery, because whatever you're feeling is what you program your subconscious to believe. So let's say you wanna start doing this on a deeper level. Pick up your phone and put exactly what you want to create on your phone. You pick up your phone like 100 and something times a day. And so maybe you combat that belief with something that's on your phone with a different messaging or a different picture. And maybe you have little things that you program throughout your phone throughout the day to help you with that belief, like to be the opposite of what you're thinking and feeling so that you can be like, oh, yeah, no, that's actually what I want to think about. That's actually what I want to
mm.
feel. So that it's not a vision board thing. It's more of like, how can I get myself into this different state, and sometimes it takes 21 days to break a habit. And most of the time, our beliefs, if not all, are just habits that we keep thinking about over and over again. They're not real truths in our lives. So you can break them.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I pulled this out of my drawer. This is the current one. I have so many of these, but I decided to have a one just to write down all of the triggers, all of the thoughts that keep coming up and I've done this on the notes app on my phone, right? But there's something that is powerful about pen to paper. There's something different that happens. And it has been so freeing. And it's something that I encourage people to do all the time. Like we have swirly, whirly thoughts. We will have all of these triggers. I mean, judgments. That's something that I really love doing too, is writing down the judgment. Like, what judgment am I passing? Because you could basically just put a mirror there and say, oh, so that really actually bothers me about myself, or that's a limiting thought that I have about the world and how people should act and should behave. There is something so incredibly powerful about shifting that story. I mean, I attribute, even though it wasn't perfect success the first time around, the only reason I was able to hit my first million is because of that, like shifting that story around what was possible. Because I thought you had to be a lawyer, you had to be a doctor, something high power to become a millionaire. And once that story was crumbled because I had evidence that people were doing it in other ways, then my entire life was able to change. And I was able to start making those small shifts that amounted to huge success. So my
Yeah.
question to you, as people step into, maybe they put this in practice, I completely echo this is the best place to start. And I'm even thinking, I look back on my journey and there's even times now when you're going through those level ups, it's kind of exhausting in the in between as you're making those changes. So what is kind of your practical advice, or maybe some more that you can offer by way of encouragement as you start to rewire those stories and those beliefs and you're in that messy middle where you're still kind of facing the reality you created with those old stories, but you also see the vision of what you're creating.
It's a back and forth kind of thing. Like 3 steps forward, you might take a 1 step back, but you're still progressing, you know? And I
Yeah.
think you have to have like this, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people do, have grace for yourself. You know, just be like, "I'm doing the best I can with what I know, with where I'm at." And I
Mm,
said that to myself all the time because I was like, "I need to get there next. Why is it taking so long? Like, I need to hurry, hurry, hurry up." But I also saw the changes, even though they were very micro, they were permanent. And that's
mm,
what I think that we have to stop, holding ourselves to like this unrealistic standard of what we believe where we should be at, because we might have comparisonitis. And this is the thing, we're all on our each individual is going on their journey. So having grace with yourself is really, really important when you're navigating the messy, like the in between a process. And what I do is I like to keep like a tracker of all the things that are actually going right. So this is beyond like having gratitude. It's like seeing the success come out on the other side, because we all look for tangible things in our lives, but when we're not seeing, like, say, the cash coming in the way we want, we sit there in judgment, we're like, "Well, it's not working yet." But what if you can start tracking all the things that you weren't doing the day before, the week before, the month before, that you are doing now, or that is bringing success into your space? I feel like that is important, especially with the women I work with, because money, unfortunately, is always the biggest indicator. "Well, look how much I'm making," but if we're looking just for the money, we will miss all of the great things that are actually helping to propel us into that next level self. So Maybe it's like you got to the gym 5 times this week. It's like you ate your protein every single day. I know this is not directly relative to business, but remember, you are the blueprint for your life and business. What it means is you're keeping your word to yourself. And
Mm.
so what that does is it builds your confidence up. Like maybe you said, I'm going to continue doing my morning routine, and we want consistency, not perfection, right? So I did it like 3 times this week. Maybe next week you're going to strive for 4, but you're doing it every single week. Like if you say you want to have a certain body or look a certain way, and you're still eating poorly and you're not going to the gym, then how can you say that actually propels you into the next level of being a woman or man of your word when you're breaking your word to yourself in the places that you know you should be keeping it? So I
Mhm.
started showing myself evidence, like, you're doing this thing that you said you're going to do, even without looking for the hard cash, and then the money follows. Because once you keep that practice of doing, and I'm not saying regiment, remember it's consistency, but when you're going to walk your 10,000 steps a day, do it. You're going to walk with the vest. Maybe one day you forgot the vest, but you still did the 10,000 steps. Acknowledge yourself, because what we do as high performer and high achievers, especially when we're rooted in unworthiness and looking for validation, we'll throw that whole 10 steps away, 10,000 steps away, because we didn't wear the vest.
Mm.
We'll say, you know what, that doesn't count because I didn't do it at this level. Let's stop doing that and let's start seeing where we can have success in places that might not be perfection states, because the only person that's judging you is yourself. But
Yeah.
when you let go of that, you will start seeing yourself propelled to like next level. This was a really big thing for me to work on. I used to have to-do lists that were like 20 things long in a day. I don't do that anymore. I have 3 things on my to-do list usually in every single day, because I realize that when I set myself up for failure, I will feel like a failure, but when I set myself up to win, I will. And there's no big deal if I did have 10 things and I said I'm going to get 3 of them done today. Nobody's going to come and get in trouble with me if those 7 things have to go tomorrow.
Mm.
I'm the only person, but it's a shift in frequency. Like when you start feeling like you can get everything done and you are successful, you will and you're moving through the past and you're seeing things in a different light. It's an encouragement on your own self. Like, yeah, we're doing a great job, because you need to be your biggest cheerleader. Because if you're not, you're going to always keep seeking validation from other people. You're never going to feel like you're there. You're never going to feel like you're enough. And you're going to keep staying in that old pattern and programming that got you that in the first place, right?
Yeah. So, so good. I think that's really, really important for people to hear, especially when you're an entrepreneur and we feel like we're on this never ending journey. And even for me, entrepreneurship was almost like the shorter path than parenting because I'm not going to get the payoff for kids for like maybe ever, right? That's such
Ev
a long experience. I'm not going to get the validation I necessarily want. And so, but even within entrepreneurship, like it's such a long stretch. And I think it can be really easy to forget the micro that we are having those wins. And I was thinking as you're talking, and I think we've said this maybe before on the podcast, you have to have more focus on your output than the outcome because you keep focusing on that, which is again, right, back into your control. And you have those little wins and you celebrate that instead of always looking for, oh my gosh, but I need more improvement. I need more improvement. But you start to see it's that whole like slight edge movement, right? The small little things that compound. That's how we have the output eventually or the outcomes that we want to have because you're just focusing on that tiny little bit of improvement. I think it's easy for that to feel silly or dumb or not enough because we are. I mean, I resonate with you because I'm a high performer, high achiever. I should be doing more. I can have more. I have plenty of hours in the calendar, but you ignore the capacity and then you're never feeling like you're winning. Every day you're behind.
Exactly, and you'd be surprised how many women don't celebrate themselves. They're like, "Oh,
Mm.
I can sell it." This is such a big thing in my community. I can celebrate other people. I have a hard time celebrating myself because she always feels like she should be at the next level. She should have done more. I'm like, "What did you do to celebrate making your million?" "I don't know." Like, because she feels like if she celebrates it publicly, people will be like, "I thought you should have been there already." Instead of her acknowledging, "Look what I've done and what I've, succeeded." And I love celebrating income wins. I love celebrating anything that makes you feel like, "Look at you." And I feel like it's just being fully seen in their power, being fully seen in their greatness. That's a thing that is one of the hardest things for powerful women to really acknowledge, because it's like I'm letting everybody see me as I am. And this is what holds most women back from, and they don't want to be too much. They want to be too seen. They don't want to make too much money, too much noise. And I'm like, no, I'm here for it all. I'm here for you to show up in your bigness. And a lot of people have this much gas left in the tank and they're not going all the way in. And one of the things is like to be seen, to be celebrated. If you start celebrating small wins every single day, you will start seeing more of that compounding because what you celebrate gets replicated. But if you're looking at what's missing, guess what? That's going to be replicated too. So you've got to make a really conscious choice about what you're focusing on because what you focus on grows. It's not something new. I know that's not, I didn't come up with that, but that is the truth. This is why I say every day, wake up and look at your bank account, look at your Stripe account, do things that are normalizing you seeing the wealth created. And some people are like, I don't like what I see in my bank account. I'm like, okay, but don't be afraid of it because whatever you run from is going to be creating havoc in the background, right?
Mm,
So you want to regulate your nervous system for more. You want to rewire your neural pathways instead of being in fight or flight to be in the celebratory state of to receivership and of the capacity to hold more in your life. And when you can do that, then you know what? More will come for you, more opportunities, more clients. I have a saying that more is coming, and it's a long story how it came up, but if more people can believe more is coming, they would operate and act from such a different state of beingness.
I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, I've agreed with everything that you said today because we are in this world. I think we've seen it. Once you've lived it and you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And you want to guide people through that. It's so imperative. We can talk all day about strategy. And I know this show is so much about that. We give so many business ideas. None of them are really going to blossom the way they could. And actually, I will say caveat to that. The trickiest part about all of this is you can have success, like you said, in survival mode. But the sweetest success really comes when you are in that inner fulfillment, emotionally grounded, and you're in a space where you can hold it, receive it, and we're not going to reject it, burn it to the ground, or resent it in the end. So I think everything that you've said is very, very powerful, and I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. I could talk to you for hours and hours upon end. Where can people go if they want
I
to binge you more?
I want to give your listeners something, basically that I feel like is going to help jumpstart them and it's going to get them in a place to attract their highest level clients, something that's going to bridge that gap between where you are and where you want to be. It's called the instant cash flow method. What you need to do is go onto my Instagram and send me a DM, send me the name of the podcast, the university, just send me a university and it's going to be automatic. I'm not even involved in it. It's going to send you this free training. We also have some of our specialists that can meet with you, and it's not a long call. It's 10 minutes if you want to jump on a quick call and find out what your blueprint's looking like. And now I would love it if you came and you went and got my book. It's Unlocking the Quantum Woman and listen to my podcast, Unapologetically Rich. I'll tell you, even if you don't do anything else, do those two things. And then join our Quantum Woman group and then binge on my YouTube. People listen to that and they make a lot of money too.
Thank you so much for bringing such good energy, such good tactical things that we can actually put into practice now. I said in the beginning, you're going to unlock doors in our hearts and our minds, and I think you've 100% done that. And I'm excited to go binge more of your content and hopefully stay in your ecosphere somewhere in the online world. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I would love that.